Treat me like a game, and I will show you how it's played. Her life crumbles whilst mine has never been better. I, 25 male, was dating my ex-girlfriend. Let's call her Jess, 24F, for 4.5 years. We met at university as she was in my business management class. We got put together on a huge project for the semester, and we just sort of clicked, and after we finished the project I asked her out, and she said yes. Those first few years together were absolute bliss. We were all lovey-dovey with each other, and overall everything just felt right between us. We rarely argued, and we never got into fights. We communicated clearly and openly with each other. I really thought she was the one that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Hell, I was saving up to buy her a ring, but here I am. During the last half year of our relationship, she began to grow distant, and was constantly making excuses on why we couldn't hang out together as much. Both of us, of course, were out of university, and we had begun working full-time jobs, so I thought this was normal. Note, we never were living together, but then soon enough she was starting to turn down intimacy. For some background info, me and her have very high libidos. We normally would go at it at least once a day. I always wore protection, and she was on the pill because neither of us were ready to have kids, thank God. One night we decided to spend the night at her place. I tried to initiate intimacy, and of course she turned it down. This was really beginning to me off, and I voiced my frustrations to her, but she just said that she wasn't feeling comfortable with her body at the time and asked to give her some space when it came to initiating intimacy. I agreed, and we both went to bed. Or at least she did. I just had this gut feeling in my stomach that something was off, and I went to snoop on her phone once I knew she was asleep. Yeah, I know this is bad, but I don't regret it one bit, and found out that she was up with her serial cheating ex, 24M. Found messages, pictures, and full-blown videos of them. The videos killed me. In those videos she was acting and saying things that really made me look at her as nothing more than a waste of space and a whore. At that very moment all I could feel was hatred towards her. I looked down at her as she was sleeping, and all I could feel was visceral disgust. I then took screenshots of all the messages and sent them to me, including the other pics she sent him. Not the videos though, I couldn't bear to send those. I quietly took whatever belongings I still had at her apartment and took them out to my car and went back to my apartment. In the morning she called me and asked me where I was, and I just gave her a quick believable excuse, and she bought it. Now here is some background info. Now let me introduce you to one of my close childhood friends. Let's call her Julia, 21F. Julia and I were really close throughout our childhood through high school. Me and her brother are best friends. They live a block away from my parents' home and where I grew up. Now about a year after me and Jess got together, I returned back to my hometown for my cousin's wedding and began hanging out with my old friends, including Julia and her brother. During that night she confessed that she had feelings for me. I turned her down and told her that I already had a girlfriend. She was very understanding and apologized, and after that we didn't really talk as much as I didn't want to give her any indications that I was interested in a relationship with her since I was dating Jess. She was fine with this and understood it with no issues at all. She doesn't use social media, so the only way we would talk is over iMessage. During that time I took a lot of photos of all of us hanging out with each other again. I went back to university about a week later, and I showed Jess where I was and who I was with, as she was interested in seeing who I hung out with during my trip. Whilst we were scrolling through images, a picture of me and Julia popped up. She began to ask questions about her and who she was. I already explained to her that she was a childhood friend of mine, and that during the trip she confessed feelings for me, but I shot her down, and I showed her the text messages to back it up. And overall she seemed fine with that. About a year later, during a little argument we had, she confessed to me that she was very insecure about her body, and that she grew very insecure after seeing pictures of Julia, because Julia had a very slim figure and looked gorgeous. I did my best to calm her fears, but I think in the end she never really got over that. Now back to the story. I texted my parents in my hometown asking if I might stay with them for a week to address some serious matters, and they worriedly agreed. I told Jess I was going to go see my parents since I hadn't seen them in a long time, and I wanted to see them, and she didn't object. I went to work and informed my manager what was going on and asked for a break. He advised me to take as much time as I needed and come back when I was ready. My parents were appalled with her activities, and my mother informed me that if I ever took her back, she would never be permitted into their home. I assured my mother that I would never return her. I then messaged Julia and asked to talk. I went over to her place. I told her everything I knew about her. I don't know what happened, but I started crying heavily, not just because I had lost someone I cared about, but also because I had wasted so much time on her. Julia was always there to comfort me. She brought out beverages and we drank, watched movies, and played Mario Kart till 2 a.m. We were both really drunk by this point, and I couldn't go back to my parents' apartment. I accepted her offer to stay the night. We walked into her room and ended up making out on her bed. Just before we undressed, she urged me to start recording with my phone. As you may imagine, we did it several times that night. Julia was saying things like "this is so much tighter than that," nasty stuff like that, throughout the whole affair. We went to bed after our last go and I stopped recording. So I got up early the next day and we ate together. When I questioned her why she wanted me to record our night, she stated she wanted to help me get my revenge. I never mentioned seeking revenge on Jess, but Julia obviously knows me well enough to know that I would want to get even. She urged me to provide her the audio file and stop our relationship. She said she still likes me and will wait for me to settle things with Jess. I told her I couldn't guarantee her anything, and she responded that's fine. Then we said our goodbyes and I went back to my parents' house, where they were anxious about me. I said Julia and I were catching up. The relief on my parents' faces was short-lived as they prepared for work. I guess he knows what I was doing that night. After that, I spent the weekend with my friends, drinking and having fun, as well as spending time with Julia, possibly having intercourse, but not recording. I told my employer I'd be back in a week and he said it was fine, best boss ever. I immediately texted Jess, telling her I had screenshots of her with her ex. When I blocked her, I attached the audio of Julia and I having sex and said, "Treat me like a game, and I will show you how it's played." I started getting spam calls and messages from our mutual acquaintances and her family. I sent them all my screenshots of text messages, and then it was mostly radio quiet. Her parents called me and apologized for their daughter's actions. A year later, I just celebrated my 26th birthday with my family and my 22-year-old girlfriend Julia. I recently got promoted at work and Julia will graduate in a little over a week. She transferred over to the university I went to for her final year. I am 5 feet 11 inches 165 pounds, and used to be a skinny kid. I've never felt more proud of myself, and I've never felt more cared for. After I dumped her, she found out he was pregnant and her ex who knocked her up supposedly ghosted her. I couldn't be the dad because I never went raw on her. In addition to having an abortion, she now has severe body image issues that have damaged most if not all of her relationships. For her, I am the lucky one who escaped with my life. I still hate her because the 12 years we spent together are gone forever. But I am happy in living my best life. Someone who has been cheated on should never settle for someone who does not appreciate them. The world is your oyster, so go live it up.